This is a video to help you with the initial stages of learning how to create a development. And basically a development is a 2D representation of a 3D object. And that's what we'll be exploring from this point forward in this class. Now, I don't want to make it sound too simple, but basically it is an extension of the true length and true size and shape that we've already done this quarter. Okay, it'll be presented in a little different fashion, but basically that's what it all boils down to. You have to use true length lines and true size and shape planes in order to create an accurate 2D development. Because if you think about, if you fold up that 2D shape, it has to be the correct size when it's in its 3D form. Okay, and in order for that to happen, all the lines have to be true length. Okay, so we'll be exploring different ways to do that throughout this course. Now, when I first started, this was difficult for me, mainly because I wanted to try to visualize the 2D development before I ever got started, and I would go through the steps and I would end up with an object that did not look like what I thought it should look like when I got started, in some cases, and that caused me some emotional distress, if you will, because I wanted to try to visualize it first, but experience has taught me that you just need to go through the steps, and then when you get done then you can try to visualize it and take some measurements and look at it and see if it makes sense. Okay, in other words, okay, when I fold this up, is this going to look like the 3D object that is supposed to look like? Okay, so that's how you need to approach visualization, and need to try to avoid it at the beginning stages and just follow the steps. I've created a lot of videos for this class to show you the different techniques that we use to produce different shapes. I don't have videos for every lesson, and that's intentional because there's some of these that I want you to work your way through. So keep that in mind. Just follow the steps and then try to see if it makes sense when you get done. So what we have here are three standard geometric shapes that you're familiar with: a cube, a cylinder, and a pyramid. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work through these quickly and to show you what I expect when you turn in your work for these developments. Before we get started, you need to create a couple of layers, and you can go to your layer properties manager to do this. You may already have a construction layer, okay, and if you don't, it's just construction. I make mine yellow so it stands out, and I let it have a continuous line type, and also a folding layer, which represents the folding lines on the development. Okay, and the folding layer should have a phantom line type, and that is the long, two shorts, and a long. Okay, and you can find that line type by just clicking load on the select line types dialog box. Okay, so once you've created those layers, we're almost ready to go, but let me explain the importance of construction lines. You have to use construction lines every time for every development, and the reason why is because for one, it almost ensures that you do it correctly, do the development correctly. But for me, from my point of view, suppose that you turn in your development and it's completely wrong, okay, and on top of that you don't have any construction lines, okay, so I don't know where you got your development from, okay, and so I don't know if you tried to just visualize it and draw something out, or if you actually tried to use construction lines but just erased them. I don't know what happened. Okay, so what construction lines allow me to do is to give you partial credit based on the technique that you used. In other words, if I told you to use a certain technique and you went through and you did that, you just didn't come up with the right answer, then I'm able to give you some partial credit. So make sure that you use construction lines in your drawings. Now, the reason they're on their separate layer is because you you may not want to turn in your final product with showing your construction lines, and what you can do, instead of erasing them, you can just turn them off, okay, with the light bulb here. Okay, so always use construction lines. And that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to switch to the construction layer, and we're just going to do a couple of these developments. Okay, the first one is a cube, and if you think about a cube, it has 6 sides, and this is the front, top, and right side view of the cube, and you can tell that they're all squares. Okay, and more important than that, though, because it's a cube, that you are viewing these planes perpendicularly, okay, which also means that you see their true size and shape already. Okay, so you don't have to do any kind of manipulation on this. You're seeing the true size and shape. So what you can do is you can just draw a couple of construction lines out to the right, okay, and then I'll do TR, enter, and I'll just trim off the excess. Okay, it didn't matter how long any of those lines were initially. I trimmed off the lines to be the length I needed them to be. Then I'll use DI and then enter, which is distance, and I'll measure from left to right across this. And again, they're squares, so all the sides are the same, and that distance is 1. So I'll use the offset command and then a distance of 1. Okay, and what I've done is I've created the 4 sides of my cube. Okay, and this is what it'll look like in a layout. Now I need to go back, and this cube has a top and a bottom. Okay, well, the top and the bottom is represented by the square shape too. Okay, so I can just draw a line straight up, straight to the left. All these are a distance of 1. Do the same for the bottom. And I can't stress this enough. The accuracy is very, very important in these developments. Okay, you have to use object snaps, and what I do is I have object snaps running in the background all the time. These are the ones I have. I just right-clicked on object snaps when endpoint, midpoint, center, quadrant, intersection, perpendicular, nearest. Every drawing that I do, those are running. Okay, and if you have to zoom in this far to make sure that you're snapped on the correct point, that's exactly what you need to do. So use those every time. So once I've done my construction, I can go to my visible layer, okay, and I'll just use polyline, and I'll just trace over the outside of my object. Okay, and that's kind of what the outside of the development would look like. Now it's not complete, because if I turn the construction layer off, then you would not know where to fold this object. Okay, and you need folding lines. So I'll turn the construction layer back on, and now I'll set my current layer to folding. Alright, so what I'll do now is I'll just simply trace over these edges, because these edges are also the folding lines where you would fold this to form the 3D shape. Okay, and those are the folding lines. Alright, and turn the construction layer off, and that's what the development looks like. Now you can tell that these folding lines aren't showing up as a phantom line, okay, which is okay for now. I'm not worried about that. If I send you a video later in the quarter showing you how to correct that, then you need to follow it then. But for now, just leave that like it is, and I'll show you how to correct that later, possibly. But go ahead and create the folding lines on a separate layer, and that way it is distinguishable between the rest of the object. And that's the final development. Now, of course, you'll be using templates, and I want the just for a quick reference, I want your developments laid out in a template. Okay, so your final development that you'll turn into me will look something like this. Of course, you'll fill out all the information on the title block, but I have a completely different video for that, so we're not going to cover that in this video as well. I'm just going to go to another development here. Now the second one in our list is a cylinder. Okay, and a cylinder looks like a rectangle from the front and the right side, and it looks like a circle from the top. Now you have what you call a layout length in a cylinder, and that's what we need to explore to start off with. So I'll just draw lines over to the right here, and these are on the wrong layer, so let me highlight those, and then I'll pick the construction layer, and I need to turn it back on